Chapter 1. Introduction. A journey through time. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the sound of footsteps echoing against marble, the murmur of distant voices rising like a tide, and the scent of olive oil, baked bread, and incense carried by a soft Mediterranean breeze. The air is warm, heavy with dust and history, yet alive with the pulse of a city that believes itself eternal. Welcome to Rome, the beating heart of an empire that once stretched from the deserts of Africa to the forests of Germania, from the misty isles of Britannia to the shining waters of the Aegean. But today we are not here to count provinces or recite victories. Today we are here for something quieter, something deeper, to walk the streets of Rome itself, to live a day as its people did. Not as a tourist rushing past ruins, but as a Roman surrounded by walls that are new, streets that are loud, and voices that are filled with ambition, hope, and fear. Rome was not just a place of emperors and legions. It was a living city, full of bakers and bricklayers, poets and philosophers, merchants and slaves, mothers and children. A city of contradictions, marble villas and crowded insulae, lofty senatorial debates and vulgar shouts in the marketplace, the grandeur of temples and the filth of alleyways. To know Rome, you must see both its glory and its shadows. In this story, we will spend a day in the eternal city. We will rise with the dawn as shopkeepers open their doors and bakers pull warm loaves from their ovens. We will walk through the Forum, where the fate of provinces and generals is decided with words sharper than swords. We will visit the public baths, where the wealthy and the poor mingle in steam and laughter. And we will step into the dark corridors of the Colosseum, where blood and sand become theater. By nightfall, we will dine at a Roman table, and finally wander through the streets as the lamps flicker and the Tiber whispers under the moonlight. This is not just history. This is a journey, a story told slowly and calmly, like a companion's voice by the fireside. Along the way, I will ask you to imagine, to question, even to wonder what it would have been like to live in this world. Could you survive in the bustling, relentless city of Rome? Would you have thrived as a patrician, commanding wealth and influence, or struggled as a poor craftsman fighting for every coin? Before we set off, pause for a moment. Think of what Rome means to you. Is it the legions marching in perfect order, the emperors crowned in laurel, or the arches and aqueducts that still stand today? Or is it something more personal, the thought that thousands of years ago, people laughed, worried, loved, and dreamed under the same stars we see tonight? Now take a deep breath. Our journey begins. Chapter 2. Morning in Rome. The first light of dawn spills across the 7 hills of Rome. The city stirs like a great beast waking from slumber. From the narrow windows of crowded insulae, tall, cramped apartment blocks, shutters creak open. You can hear the rustle of straw beds, the cry of a baby, the cough of an old man who has lived too many winters. From somewhere down the alley, a rooster crows, though its voice is drowned out by the rattle of carts already beginning their slow journey toward the markets. In one of these insulae, a man named Marcus stretches his weary arms. He is a lamp maker, a craftsman whose fingers are stained with clay and soot. His wife, Fabia, rises beside him, tying her hair with a worn strip of cloth. Their small child still sleeps, curled up like a kitten under a blanket patched too many times. The family has little, yet there is comfort in routine. Marcus knows that today he will shape clay into oil lamps, small vessels that will find their way into temples, homes, and taverns. Somewhere, his work will light another man's meal, a scholar's late-night reading, or perhaps the whispered prayers of a woman before the household gods. He is no senator, no general, but he belongs to Rome as much as they do. Meanwhile, across the city in a spacious domus, Lucius, a wealthy equestrian, wakes to a different kind of morning. Sunlight filters through the open atrium, where the household shrine glows with a small flame. A slave pours water into a bronze basin. Another lays out a freshly laundered toga, and yet another brings a platter of bread with honey and fresh figs. Before touching any of it, Lucius pauses before the images of his ancestors, carved in wood and ivory. He offers a few grains of incense, a silent nod to the spirits of the household. Only then does he begin his day. For him, Rome is a stage, and he must play his role with dignity and authority. Step outside with me now into the streets. The air is cool, carrying the smell of ashes from last night's fires, mingled with the sharper scent of damp stone. The paving stones beneath your feet are slick from dew, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. The alleys are narrow, barely wide enough for two carts to pass, and lined with taverns, shops, and bakeries. Already you hear voices, sellers shouting, "Fresh bread! Warm bread!" while children dart between legs, laughing, barefoot and wild. At the corner of the street, a baker pulls loaves from his oven. The crust is golden, the smell irresistible. For the poor, this bread will be breakfast, perhaps the only solid meal of the day. For the rich, it will be only the beginning of a lavish spread. Yet in this moment, standing before the warmth of the oven, both rich and poor share the same hunger. The baker's boy hands out small rolls, hot enough to sting the fingers, but no one complains. The simple act of eating together makes the city feel united, if only for a heartbeat. As the sun climbs higher, the city grows louder. The clatter of iron-shod wheels on stone echoes through the valleys between the hills. Merchants push their carts, donkeys bray, and above it all rise the cries of vendors calling out their goods. Olives from Spain, dates from Judea, cheese from the Alps, fish still glistening from the Tyrrhenian Sea. Rome is not merely a city. It is a crossroads of the world, where the treasures of countless lands gather in one place. You pass by an aqueduct arching overhead, carrying a steady stream of water into the city. Imagine the marvel of it. Clear water flowing across miles of countryside, descending with perfect precision, never faltering. For the people of Rome, this is not a wonder, but a daily blessing. Without it, There would be no baths, no fountains, no gardens blooming in courtyards. The aqueducts are Rome's veins, carrying life through its body. And all around, people move with purpose. A slave hurries with a jug of water balanced on his shoulder. A senator is carried in a litter, veiled against the dust. Schoolboys clutch their wax tablets, muttering their lessons under their breath, while their teachers walk sternly beside them. Somewhere, a philosopher in a threadbare cloak gestures passionately to a small crowd, speaking of virtue and fate. Life in Rome is constant motion, constant sound, a living tide that never rests. Pause for a moment and listen. What do you hear most clearly? The clatter of hooves, the voices of merchants, or the laughter of children? Which of these sounds would comfort you, and which would overwhelm you? The city is fully awake now, and our journey has just begun. Ahead lies the Forum, the heart of Roman power and ambition. There we will see how words shape empires, and how ambition can lift a man as quickly as it can destroy him. Chapter 3: The Patricians and the Forum. As the sun rises higher and the shadows of the tall insulae shrink into narrow lines across the cobblestones, all roads seem to pull toward one place: the Forum. This is the living heart of the city, a stage where power is displayed not in bronze or stone alone, but in the voices, gestures, and ambitions of men. If the Tiber carries water to Rome, the Forum carries its spirit. Approach it now with me. From a distance you see columns rising, white against the blue sky. Temples crown the square like guardians. The Temple of Saturn, keeper of the treasury. The Temple of Castor and Pollux, where senators gather in whispers. The rostra, the speaker's platform, from which words have toppled governments and built them anew. The marble shines, yet between the columns are stalls and traders, hawkers of figs and amulets, boys chasing each other in play. Grandeur and chaos, sacred and profane, side by side. This is Rome. Look to the steps of the Curia, where senators in their gleaming white togas lined with purple discuss the matters of empire. One gestures with a roll of parchment, his voice rising in rhythm like a trained orator. Another stands silently, arms folded, waiting for the moment to strike with words as sharp as any sword. Around them cluster their clients, men of lesser status who depend upon their patron's favor. Each morning they visit, greet him, perhaps accompany him to the Forum, for loyalty is the currency that oils the Roman system. The patron offers protection, advice, sometimes money. In return, the client offers support, presence, and votes when needed. Among the crowd, you might catch sight of Lucius, our wealthy equestrian, moving with measured dignity. He is not yet a senator, but he dreams of higher office. His toga is spotless. His slaves walk a pace behind, carrying his writing tablets and documents. He greets acquaintances with a nod, exchanges a word here, a smile there, always calculating how each gesture might shift his position a little closer to power. Rome is not a city of chance. It is a city of performance, where every man plays his role with care. But do not think the forum is reserved only for the mighty. Step a little further and you find the voice of the people. The plebeians gathered in groups, gossiping, arguing, shouting their opinions about generals, taxes, grain. A young man recites a fiery speech he memorized from Cicero, his arms flailing as he imitates the orator's cadence. The crowd laughs, cheers, boos. To be Roman is to speak, to persuade, to fight not only with the sword but with the tongue. Listen closely to the sounds. Somewhere a herald is reading out the latest announcements, his voice echoing against the marble walls. A case is being argued in the basilica, the great hall of justice, where advocates weave words like nets to trap their opponents. Children dart between legs, soldiers pass through with armor clinking, priests walk solemnly carrying sacred instruments. The forum is less a place than a symphony, each sound an instrument in a grand orchestra. And yet, behind the noise, there is an order, an invisible web of power. Every senator fears the crowd. Every crowd depends on the grain shipments that arrive from Africa, and every ship depends on the decisions made here. The empire is vast, but its pulse is felt in this square. Now imagine yourself standing on the rostra, looking out at the sea of faces. Would you have the courage to speak, to raise your hand and command silence, to let your words ring across the square? Or would the roar of the people make your heart tremble, your voice falter? For centuries, men have dreamed of this moment, to hold Rome itself in the palm of their hand. Some have risen to glory, others have fallen into disgrace. One wrong word, one misplaced gesture can destroy a career. The forum is both a stage and a battlefield. But as we stand here watching senators argue and clients hover, let us not forget the simple truth. Beneath the marble, Rome is made of people. The patricians in their villas, the plebeians in their insulae, the slaves who carry burdens, the traders who sell fruit. All of them are threads in this vast tapestry. Remove one, and the picture begins to fray. The sun now hangs high. The forum is alive with voices that could sway the fate of provinces thousands of miles away. Yet for the common man, it is also the place to buy bread, to meet a friend, to catch a glimpse of power and wonder if, perhaps, destiny might one day lift him into its circle. As you leave the forum, ask yourself, would you prefer to live as one of these powerful patricians, moving among marble and politics, or as a common craftsman, your world smaller but perhaps safer? Our journey is far from over. Beyond the forum lies another Rome, the Rome of the marketplace and the workshops, where trade, sweat, and craft shape the city's daily rhythm. Let us walk there next, into the noise of merchants and the smell of fresh-cut wood, as we discover the hands that build the empire. Chapter 4: The Markets and the Craftsmen. Leave behind the grandeur of the forum and follow me down toward the markets, where the marble gives way to the everyday. Here, the air is thicker with smells. Roasted nuts, fresh bread, garlic, fish just pulled from the sea, mingling with the less pleasant odors of sweat, animals, and refuse left from yesterday's trade. The streets grow narrower, the voices louder, until it feels as though the entire city has squeezed itself into this space. Merchants from every corner of the empire crowd the stalls. A Phoenician trader displays purple-dyed cloth so vivid it seems to glow in the sunlight, the color of kings, worth its weight in silver. Next to him, an Egyptian hawks papyrus scrolls, the rough kind for shopping lists and the fine kind for poetry. From the east come spices in little sacks: pepper, cinnamon, cardamom, their fragrance cutting through the heavy Roman air like whispers of distant lands. The cries of vendors rise like a chorus: dates from Judea, olives from Hispania, fine cheese from Gaul. Each one competes to outshout the next, their hands waving, their faces eager. Children dart through the crowd, some carrying baskets for their mothers, others hoping to snatch an unattended coin purse. The clatter of donkey hooves and the squeak of cart wheels add rhythm to the chaos. Step closer to a stall where a fishmonger lays out his catch on a slab of stone. Silver scales glitter in the sunlight, water still dripping from fins. A woman presses a finger into the side of a fish, testing its freshness, while the vendor swears on Neptune's trident that it was caught only this morning. Across the way, a butcher sharpens his knife with a hiss, slicing through slabs of pork and goat, his apron streaked with red. The crowd doesn't flinch. Blood and hunger are companions here. And yet, beyond the stalls of food and cloth, Rome's heart beats in its craftsmen. Step into the workshop of a potter, where clay dust coats the air and shelves groan under the weight of half-finished lamps and bowls. Marcus, our lamp maker, sits at his wheel, his hands steady as he shapes another vessel. Around him, apprentices move quickly, fetching water, kneading clay, stoking the kiln. The room is hot, smoky, filled with the smell of earth and fire. Each lamp that emerges from the kiln is simple, humble, yet it will carry light into the lives of others. Marcus works without fanfare, yet he is as essential to Rome as any senator in the Curia. Next door, a blacksmith hammers iron on his anvil, sparks flying like stars in the gloom. The sound rings out into the street, a constant heartbeat of the city. He shapes nails, hinges, locks, even swords, though fewer now in this time of peace. His arms are thick with muscle, his tunic soaked with sweat, but there is pride in his eyes. He knows that without him, doors would not close, carts would not roll, soldiers would not fight. Further on, a shoemaker sits surrounded by scraps of leather, needles, and awls. His fingers move quickly, stitching sandals for slaves, boots for legionaries, soft slippers for wealthy women. He tests the sole against the ground, muttering about quality, shaking his head at cheap imitations sold in the stalls. Craft is identity, and each artisan guards his skill as fiercely as a soldier guards his sword. The market is not only a place of trade, but of gossip. Here news spreads faster than in the Forum. A shipment of grain is late. Will the price rise? A senator's nephew was seen in a tavern, drunk and shouting. Will scandal follow? A new gladiator has arrived in the city. Will he survive the arena? Each whisper weaves into the fabric of daily life, binding the city in stories. But markets are also mirrors of inequality. Look, over there, a patrician woman walks among the stalls, slaves carrying her purchases in baskets woven from reeds. She chooses figs with delicate fingers, ignores the beggar tugging at her toga, and glances disdainfully at the craftsman who bows as she passes. Meanwhile, a poor mother haggles fiercely over a loaf of bread, her children clinging to her tunic. For her, every coin matters. For the patrician, money is as common as the dust on her sandals. Yet despite the difference, both share the same streets, the same smells, the same sun beating down. Rome is a mosaic, each stone different in size and color, but together forming a single picture. Now pause for a moment. If you were to live in Rome, would you rather be among the merchants shouting for attention, the craftsmen shaping clay and iron, or the wealthy patrons strolling with slaves at their heels? Where would you feel most at home? In the noise of the market, or in the quiet pride of a workshop? The sun climbs higher, and the heat settles like a heavy cloak on the city. Men wipe sweat from their brows, women fan themselves with woven reeds, and the markets begin to thin. For Romans, it is time to seek shade, to step away from the blaze of midday. And there is one place where all classes, all voices, all bodies gather to refresh and renew themselves: the baths. Let us walk there now, into the steam, the laughter, and the echoes of marble halls, to see how Rome cleanses itself each day. Chapter 5: Water, Aqueducts, and the Baths. Follow me now away from the shouting of the markets, toward the steady murmur of flowing water. For in Rome, water is more than a necessity. It is a symbol of mastery. To command rivers, to bend mountains, to channel springs across miles of countryside and deliver them into the heart of the city. This is power as visible and enduring as any triumphal arch. Look up. Do you see it? An aqueduct arches across the valley, a procession of stone giants, each carrying on its shoulders the clear stream of life. From distant hills the water has been captured, guided, disciplined with perfect precision. It descends at the gentlest of slopes, so subtle you might not notice, yet never falters. Day and night, season after season, the water flows, entering the city through great conduits, filling fountains, cisterns, and pipes. Without it, Rome would wither. With it, Rome thrives as the greatest metropolis the world has ever seen. Step closer to one of the fountains where the stream gushes into a marble basin. Children splash their hands in it. Women fill clay jars. Old men rinse dust from their faces. A beggar leans in to drink, and no one pushes him away. The water is for all. In this, Rome shows a rare generosity. The aqueducts belong not only to the powerful, but to the people. Imagine, in a world where many villages struggle for a single well, a city that bathes in abundance. No wonder foreigners speak of Rome with awe. And now, Let us enter the true temple of water, the baths. They rise like palaces, vast complexes of marble and mosaic, echoing with voices. Some are simple, but others, like the baths of Caracalla or Diocletian, are so immense they could hold whole towns within their walls. Here, Romans come not only to cleanse the body, but to refresh the soul, to talk, to plot, to laugh, to live. Walk with me through the doorway, past the slave who collects the entrance fee. The air is thick with steam and scented oils. To your left, men strip off their tunics, handing them to attendants. To your right, others emerge glistening from the pools, their skin red from the heat, their eyes bright. The sound is a symphony, splashing water, murmured conversations, bursts of laughter, the scrape of strigils as men scrape oil and dirt from their skin. First, we enter the apoditerium, the changing room. Benches line the walls, niches hold sandals and clothes, while boys run between carrying towels. The chatter here is lively, greetings exchanged, news passed, jokes whispered. Already you feel part of a community, as though the bath dissolves the boundaries of class. Next is the tepidarium, the warm room. Step onto the mosaic floor, where patterns of dolphins and tridents shimmer beneath a thin veil of steam. The warmth seeps into your skin, loosening the stiffness of the morning. Here men linger, reclining on benches, discussing politics, philosophy, business deals. One speaks of a senator's scandal, another debates the teachings of Stoics, a third boasts of the profits he made from imported grain. The air hums with words as much as with heat. From here, many pass into the caldarium, the hot room. The air hits you like fire, thick and heavy, scented with resin and herbs. The pool glows in the dim light, steam rising like ghosts. Men sink into the water with sighs of pleasure, their voices hushed, as though the heat demands reverence. Some rub themselves with oil, others lie on the hot stone benches, letting sweat pour from their pores. It is purification, both physical and spiritual. The caldarium strips you of your burdens, melting them into the air. When the body can endure no more, there is the frigidarium. Step quickly. The water is cold as mountain snow, a shock to the skin, a jolt to the heart. Gasps and laughter erupt as men plunge under, emerging with wide eyes and renewed vigor. In this instant, you feel alive, reborn. The cycle is complete. Warm, hot, cold, body and spirit cleansed. But the baths are more than water. They are libraries, gardens, gyms, theaters. Outside the pools, men exercise with weights, wrestle, throw discus. Inside chambers, readers pore over scrolls, while philosophers argue in shaded courtyards. Musicians play flutes, women gossip in separate quarters, vendors sell snacks of nuts and fruit. The baths are the city in miniature, a place where every class mingles, where boundaries blur, where Rome breathes together. Stand for a moment and listen. Do you hear the slap of water, the laughter echoing against marble, the low murmur of secrets exchanged in corners? Which sound calls to you most? the playful splashes, or the quiet conversations that might change a man's destiny. As the afternoon drifts on, the baths empty slowly. Men leave refreshed, their skin glowing, their minds sharpened. Slaves carry bundles of towels, sweep water from the floors, stoke the fires for tomorrow. The marble grows quiet, but the echo remains. The baths will open again at dawn, as they always do, as they always will. When we step outside once more, the sun is beginning its descent. The city is glowing with afternoon light, and Rome feels calm, refreshed, alive. But beyond the baths lies another world of Rome, the world of words, of ideas, of young minds shaped by teachers and old ones sharpened by philosophy. Let us walk there now, to the schools and the gardens of thought, to hear what the Romans believed about virtue, knowledge, and the meaning of life. Chapter 6: Education, Philosophy, and Words. The city, refreshed from its midday baths, hums with a different kind of energy. The dust has settled after the rush of the markets, and the heat of the sun has begun to soften. Now is the hour not only of trade and leisure, but of words, for Rome is not only built of stone and blood, but also of speech, learning, and thought. Step with me into a modest schoolroom tucked between two insulae. The space is simple: a wooden bench, a few wax tablets, the stern presence of a teacher, and the restless bodies of children. The teacher is a grammaticus, his tunic worn, his face marked by years of repetition. He holds a stylus in one hand and a volume of Virgil in the other. His voice drones as he recites lines from the Aeneid. Tales of wandering heroes, of battles and losses, of destiny and divine wrath. Repeat, he commands, and the children stumble through the verses, some too quickly, some too slowly, a few with confidence that surprises even their master. Mistakes are corrected sharply, for in Rome words are as powerful as swords, and precision is demanded. Here, young boys learn not only to read and write, but to think, to persuade, to argue. A Roman man who cannot wield language is a soldier without a shield. Beyond basic schooling lies the art of rhetoric, where voices are sharpened into weapons. In another hall, older students gather around a reader, a teacher of oratory. He challenges them with questions, forces them to defend absurd positions, and mocks them when they falter. One moment they must argue why a tyrant deserves mercy, the next why he must be slain without hesitation. It is a game, yes, but also preparation for the forum, where one misstep could mean ruin. To persuade the crowd, to sway a senator, to win a trial, these are victories as crucial as any on the battlefield. But not all teaching is so rigid. Walk with me to a shaded garden where philosophers gather. Here the air is lighter, filled with the smell of herbs and flowers, the sound of fountains bubbling in the background. Stoics speak of virtue, of mastering one's emotions, of living in harmony with nature. Epicureans argue for pleasure, not the crude pleasure of gluttony, but the quiet joy of friendship, of peace, of freedom from fear. Cynics laugh at both, pointing to their ragged cloaks as proof that philosophy needs nothing but courage. A small crowd listens, nods, shakes their heads, interrupts, applauds. For the Romans, philosophy is not hidden in books. It is lived, argued, wrestled with in the open air. One man quotes Seneca, another counters with Cicero, a third invokes Socrates. The debate may change no law, win no fortune, yet it feeds the mind like bread feeds the body. Nearby, poets recite verses to anyone willing to listen. Some speak of love, of longing glances and stolen kisses. Others sing of gods and heroes, weaving myths into new patterns. A boy declaims satirical lines mocking a wealthy patron, and the crowd roars with laughter. Words, whether lofty or crude, are Rome's second heartbeat. They echo through taverns, baths, and even in whispers behind closed doors. Now imagine yourself here. Would you sit among the children, scratching letters into wax tablets with aching fingers? Would you rise to speak before the reader, risking ridicule for a chance to shine? Or would you drift toward the garden, content to listen as men debate the nature of the soul beneath the rustle of olive leaves? Even the poor who cannot afford tutors catch fragments of this world. In taverns, they repeat phrases overheard in the Forum. In markets, they argue with the same passion as senators, even if the topic is only the price of bread. Rome is soaked in words. They belong to everyone. And yet, words can be dangerous. A poorly chosen speech might offend an emperor. A sharp satire might bring punishment. Freedom of thought exists, but only within invisible walls. Still, people risk it because to be Roman is to speak. As the afternoon leans toward evening, the voices soften, the lessons end. Children are dismissed to their families. Philosophers retire to their scrolls. Poets seek patrons to fund their dreams. But the spirit of words does not die with the sunset. Tonight, it will rise again in theaters, in stories told over wine, in speeches shouted in torchlight. For now, though, let us leave the gardens of philosophy and the echoing schools. Another kind of voice is calling, louder, rougher, more primal. The voice of entertainment, of theater and spectacle, of the crowd's roar shaking the very stones of the Colosseum. Chapter 7: Entertainment, from theater to arena. As the sun dips lower and the heat of the day softens, the people of Rome turn their eyes toward entertainment. For Romans, leisure is not idleness. It is an essential part of life, a way to renew the spirit, to show loyalty to the state, and to share in the collective heartbeat of the city. The city itself provides it freely, for emperors know that bread alone is not enough. To keep a people content, you must also give them spectacles. Let us begin with the theater. Imagine a semicircular stone structure rising in tiers, filled with men and women jostling for seats. The stage is set with painted backdrops. A palace, a forest, a street. Actors in masks and colorful robes prepare backstage, their voices echoing in practice. Comedy, tragedy, satire. All are performed here, and the crowd drinks them in with eagerness. In comedies, slaves outwit their masters, young lovers deceive stern fathers, and clever women bend fate to their will. The audience roars with laughter, slapping their thighs, pointing to the stage, delighting in the familiar chaos of human folly. In tragedies, kings fall, families tear themselves apart, and fate crushes even the mighty. Here the crowd grows hushed, eyes fixed on the stage, some even weeping as the actors declaim verses filled with sorrow. And in satire, the sharpest words are loosed, mocking politics, wealth, and even the gods themselves. Rome tolerates much, for laughter is both relief and release. But theater is only the beginning. For the true roar of Rome, we must go to the circus. Step into the Circus Maximus, vast beyond imagining, stretching longer than the eye can follow. Chariot races are about to begin, and the crowd swells to hundreds of thousands. Flags snap in the wind, betting coins change hands, and chants rise for favorite teams. The blues, the greens, the reds, the whites. The gates fly open, and the chariots surge forward, wheels rattling, horses screaming, dust rising in clouds. The drivers lean low, whips cracking, as they thunder around the spina. The long central barrier adorned with statues and obelisks. The crowd roars as one, a living storm of sound. Children shriek, old men shout advice, women clutch charms against bad luck. A single crash, a will shattered, horses tumbling, and the noise swells into frenzy. For Romans, these races are not sport alone, but passion, identity, even politics. To cheer for a team is to belong. And then, of course, there is the arena. The Colosseum looms like a mountain of stone, its arches filled with shadows and anticipation. Enter through the gates and the world changes. The air is heavy with the scent of sweat, of animals, of blood soaked into the sand. Tens of thousands of people fill the tiers, their voices rising in a tide of expectation. First come the displays. Exotic beasts from Africa, lions, leopards, elephants. They are led into the arena, admired for their strangeness, then slain by hunters for the crowd's delight. Next come the executions, criminals, rebels, prisoners of war. Some die swiftly, others in cruelly staged dramas, meant as lessons to all who watch. Rome is merciless, and the people cheer as justice is done. But then the main event. The gladiators enter, men clad in armor, some heavy with helmets and shields, others light with nets and tridents. They salute the emperor. Those who are about to die salute you, and the fight begins. The clash of metal rings out, the crowd surges with every blow, and the sand drinks the sweat and blood of the combatants. Some matches end in swift victory, others drag on in brutal endurance. And when one man falls, all eyes turn to the emperor or the sponsor of the games. A raised thumb or a downward gesture may decide life or death. Imagine yourself here. Would you cheer, swept away by the roar of the crowd, the drama of the fight? Or would you turn away, unable to bear the cruelty, wondering how thousands can find joy in such suffering? For Romans, the arena is more than cruelty. It is a mirror of life itself. Strength, skill, courage, fate, all are tested here. The gladiator becomes a symbol, a man who faces death with dignity. And in that, strangely, there is honor. Some gladiators even gain fame, adored like heroes, their names whispered in taverns, their likeness painted on walls. The games end as the sun sets, the crowd spilling out into the streets, still buzzing with excitement. Some argue over which charioteer is best. Others replay every strike of the gladiators. Still others grumble about a favorite who lost. The city feels electric, alive, as though the energy of the arena has spilled into every alley and tavern. And yet, behind the noise, Rome grows quiet again. The theater's empty, the circus gates close, the arena sleeps under the moonlight. Tomorrow there will be new spectacles, new laughter, new blood. But for now the city exhales. Now pause for a moment. Which of these entertainments would draw you most? Would you sit in the theater, laughing at the folly of men? Would you cheer for your team at the circus, heart racing with the thunder of hooves? Or would you step into the shadow of the arena, caught between horror and awe at the sight of men fighting for their lives? Entertainment is the voice of Rome, loud, restless, unyielding. But as the city quiets, another voice rises. The voice of faith, of ritual, of the gods who are said to watch over all. Let us follow that voice now into the temples and the homes of Rome, where incense curls in the air and prayers whisper to unseen powers. Chapter 8: Faith, Rituals, and Household Gods. As twilight approaches, the roar of the arena fades, and another rhythm takes its place. The quiet steps of priests, the smoke of incense, the murmur of prayers whispered into the evening air. Rome, for all its politics and spectacles, is also a city of gods, countless gods, woven into every street, every home, every life. Step with me now through the forum once more, but not to hear the orators. Instead, look to the temples. Their marble columns glow gold in the sinking sun, their steps worn smooth by generations of worshippers. At the Temple of Saturn, citizens offer thanks for the wealth of grain stored beneath its shadow. At the Temple of Vesta, priestesses guard the eternal flame, a fire that must never die, for it symbolizes the life of Rome itself. If it were to go out, many believe the empire would crumble. The rituals are precise, sacred, and deeply Roman. Priests known as pontifices and augurs lead ceremonies, chanting prayers in ancient formulas, careful never to stumble, for one wrong word could spoil the ritual, requiring it to be begun again. Offerings of wine, fruit, and incense are poured out onto altars, while animals are sacrificed, their entrails studied for omens. To modern ears, this may sound strange, even cruel, but to Romans it was the language of the gods. Through these signs, they believed they could read the will of Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and countless others. Religion in Rome is everywhere, and yet it is not a matter of personal faith alone. It is a civic duty, a contract between the people and the divine. The gods protect Rome, and Rome honors the gods. When an army marches, sacrifices are made. When a new building rises, a ceremony blesses its foundations. When a child is born, when a marriage is celebrated, when the dead are laid to rest, always there are prayers, offerings, rituals. But the temples are only one side of Roman piety. Let us step into a home where the heart of worship is smaller, quieter, but no less powerful. In the corner of a Roman domus stands a lararium, a little shrine to the household gods, the Lares and Penates. Tiny statues of ancestors and protective spirits watch over the family. Each morning, a few drops of wine or a pinch of incense are offered. Each evening, a prayer is spoken in gratitude for the day. Here, religion is intimate, woven into the rhythm of daily life. Imagine Marcus, the lamp maker, returning home from his workshop. His hands are sore, his tunic streaked with clay, but before he eats, he steps to the shrine. He whispers a small prayer for health, for enough work tomorrow, for the safety of his child. He pours a drop of cheap wine, the best he can afford, onto the small altar. It is not much, but it is an act of connection, a way to feel that unseen forces guard his fragile life. Now picture Lucius, our wealthy equestrian, in his grand atrium. His lararium glows with polished bronze figures. His offerings are richer. Fine incense from Arabia, wine from his own vineyards. Yet his prayer is not so different, for success in business, for safety of his family, for honor to his name. In the eyes of the household gods, rich and poor alike stand equal. And outside these homes, the streets themselves are filled with shrines. At crossroads stand little altars to the Lares Compitales, guardian spirits of the neighborhoods. Passers-by leave offerings of flowers, coins, bread. Even in the busiest alleys, the gods are never far away. But Roman religion is not only about peace and gratitude. It is also about fear and the attempt to control fate. Omens are sought in the flight of birds, the crack of thunder, the shape of smoke. If lightning strikes near a temple, it is a warning. If a chicken refuses to eat before a battle, it is a bad sign. The gods speak in riddles, and men spend their lives trying to interpret them. Pause now and ask yourself, would you find comfort in these rituals, in the sense that every action, every meal, every journey, every decision is watched over by divine eyes? Or would you find it suffocating to believe that no step is free of the gods' judgment? As night deepens, the temples close their gates, but the household shrines remain lit with small lamps. The gods do not sleep, and so the Romans never truly cease their devotion. Even dreams are thought to carry messages, omens from the divine. Tomorrow, priests will sacrifice again. Augurs will study the skies again. Families will bow before their shrines again. For Rome's power rests not only on legions and laws, but on this eternal dialogue with the unseen. And yet, beyond prayers and rituals, there is another force that sustains the empire. the might of its army, the reach of its provinces, the discipline of men who carry Rome's eagle to the edges of the known world. Let us follow them now to the camps and frontiers to see how Rome extends its shadow far beyond these walls. Chapter 9: The Army and the Provinces. Beyond the marble of Rome and the hum of its crowded streets lies another heartbeat. Steady, disciplined, unyielding. It is the march of sandals striking dirt in perfect rhythm, the glint of sunlight on armor, the sound of orders shouted in Latin across fields and valleys. This is the Roman army, the backbone of the empire, the force that carved out its provinces and held them together for centuries. Picture a legion encamped on the frontier. Tents are laid out in precise rows, every stake and rope in order. A ditch and rampart surround the camp, guards posted at each gate. Inside, soldiers move with practiced efficiency. Some cook grain porridge over small fires, others mend cloaks, sharpen swords, or polish shields. Even at rest, discipline rules every action. For a Roman soldier, life is not a matter of comfort, but of duty. Each legionary carries his world on his back. Weapons, armor, rations, tools. He digs trenches, builds roads, raises forts, and when ordered, fights with the skill of long training. His armor gleams with plates of iron, his helmet crested, his short sword ready. The testudo, the tortoise formation, is practiced until second nature. Shields locked above and before, an unbreakable wall. Together, legionaries move like a single creature, each man a part of the greater body. The provinces know this strength well. In Gaul, in Germania, in Britannia, people look upon these soldiers with fear and awe. Rome's army is not merely a tool of conquest. It is also an instrument of Romanization. With the soldiers come roads, aqueducts, amphitheaters, laws. Towns rise where once there were only fields. Markets flourish, local elites adopt Roman dress, Roman speech, Roman customs. The army enforces Rome's will, but also spreads Rome's way of life. And yet, the life of a soldier is harsh. Imagine standing guard in a cold German forest, snow settling on your cloak, the silence broken only by the howl of wolves, or sweating under a burning Syrian sun, the air heavy with dust, waiting for an enemy that may never come. Many soldiers never see Rome itself. Their empire is the frontier, their family the men in their cohort. Letters are written home, but replies may never arrive. Pay is steady, but danger is constant. A legionary may serve 20 years before retirement grants him land or citizenship. Until then, his body belongs to Rome. Not all provinces accept Roman rule easily. Rebellions flare in distant corners, led by chiefs who refuse to bow to the eagle standard. In Britain, Boudica rose against the empire, her warriors burning Roman settlements before being crushed. In Judea, zealots resisted with fire and faith only to be subdued. In Germania, a great disaster once fell upon the legions at Teutoburg Forest, where entire cohorts were annihilated in ambush. These defeats remind Rome that even its power is not absolute. Yet each time, Rome adapts, rebuilds, and sends its soldiers marching once again. But Rome also rewards loyalty. In the East, Greek cities flourish under Roman protection, their theaters and temples blending with Roman arches and baths. In the South, Egypt's grain fills Roman granaries, feeding the hungry masses of the capital. Across Africa, Asia, and Europe, the empire becomes a patchwork of cultures bound by Roman law and guarded by Roman arms. To walk through a province is to see Rome reflected in 1,000 different mirrors, never identical but always recognizable. Imagine yourself here on the frontier. Would you endure the discipline of the legion, the endless drills, the long marches? Would you find pride in carrying the eagle, knowing that your strength holds the empire together? Or would you long for home, counting the years until your service ended? Back in Rome, citizens sleep under the protection of these far-off legions. They may never see the frontiers, never hear the clash of swords in distant forests, but their safety depends upon it. Bread arrives in the markets because soldiers guard the ships. Peace reigns in the streets because legions deter rebellion. Every lamp lit in a Roman home is, in some sense, paid for by the sweat and blood of soldiers far away. As the day nears its end, the soldiers at their camps prepare for another night watch. Fires burn low, sentries pace along the ramparts, and the stars shine above foreign lands. Rome sleeps at home, but Rome also keeps vigil on every horizon. And so, when we return once more to the city, it feels different, knowing what lies beyond its walls. The provinces, the legions, the endless frontier, deepens our sense of what Rome truly is. Not just a city, but a world. Let us now return to the heart of that world. Evening is falling in Rome, lamps are being lit, and families are gathering around their tables. It is time to step into their homes, to sit among them, to taste the food and hear the laughter of a Roman banquet. Chapter 10: Evening Banquets and Family Life. The sun is sinking low, its light turning the marble of temples to gold and the narrow streets to rivers of shadow. The clamor of markets has faded, the baths are quiet, and the roar of the circus has dissolved into memory. Now Rome exhales, and families gather in the heart of their homes. Evening has come, and with it the rituals of dining, of storytelling, of rest. Step first into a humble insula, where Marcus the lampmaker returns from his workshop. His body is tired, his tunic smudged with clay, but his eyes brighten as he enters the small room where his wife and child wait. Fabia has prepared a simple meal: bread, olives, perhaps a bit of cheese if fortune has been kind, and a thin stew of lentils. The aroma is modest, yet to Marcus it smells of comfort. He lights one of his own lamps, filling the room with a warm glow, and the family eats together, sharing laughter, complaints, and small hopes. A neighbor might stop by with news from the street, and children chase each other through the hallway until scolded back to bed. There is little luxury here, but there is life, rich in its own way. Now follow me into the domus of Lucius, our equestrian. Here the evening is a different theater. The atrium gleams with polished marble, mosaics shimmer in lamplight, and slaves move silently to and fro, carrying trays and filling cups. Guests recline on couches in the triclinium, arranged in threes around low tables. The air is filled with the fragrance of roasted meats, herbs, and wine. The banquet begins with gustatio, appetizers of eggs, olives, salads dressed with garum, that pungent fish sauce beloved by Romans. Laughter rises as guests dip bread into sauces, sip honeyed wine, and exchange greetings. Then come the main dishes: roasted boar, spiced dormice, fish drizzled with oil, poultry stuffed with herbs. Slaves carve and serve, pouring wine constantly, though always diluted with water. For Romans, to drink it pure would be barbaric. Between courses, entertainment is offered. A musician plucks at a lyre, a poet recites verses, a jester leaps with crude jokes that make even senators laugh. Conversation drifts from politics to philosophy, from gossip about lovers to debates about which gladiator fought most bravely that morning. For Lucius, this is not only pleasure but performance. Every gesture, every word, every guest reflects his status. A banquet is as much about reputation as it is about food. Children in wealthy homes sometimes join briefly, brought in to recite lessons or sing a song before being dismissed. Wives may host their own gatherings or sit beside their husbands, depending on the household. In poorer families, the children eat first, then curl up to sleep while the adults talk into the night. Always, the table is a place of connection, of weaving bonds both tender and political. But not every Roman night is filled with laughter. In some homes, arguments spark over money, dowries, or politics. In others, silence sits heavy, broken only by the scrape of knives on plates. Rome is vast, and its families are as varied as its streets. Yet in all of them, the evening meal is sacred, the moment when the day slows and human closeness takes center stage. Pause now and imagine yourself reclining at one of these tables. Would you savor the delicacies of Lucius' banquet, relishing flavors from across the empire? Or would you feel more at ease with Marcus and his family, breaking bread in a modest room where love, not luxury, fills the air? Which table feels more like home to you? As the banquet stretches late, the city outside darkens. Lamps flicker in doorways, casting halos of light into the night. Drunken laughter drifts from taverns, lovers whisper in alleys, and the hum of conversation rises from every window. Rome, even at night, never truly sleeps. And so, with our bellies full and our hearts warmed by food and company, let us step once more into the streets. The night belongs to the eternal city now, a world of shadows and whispers, of dangers and dreams. It is time to see Rome after dark. Chapter 11: The Night and the Eternal City. The last light of day fades beyond the hills, and the eternal city dawns its other face. Rome at night is both beautiful and dangerous. a place where shadows lengthen, secrets stir, and the city whispers with voices different from the day. Step with me into the streets once more. Lamps glow faintly in niches, fed by oil, their flames flickering in the breeze. Their light is soft, golden, yet it leaves much in darkness. The stones beneath our feet are damp with evening dew, reflecting the glow of the torches carried by the night watch. These guards patrol with spears and lanterns, their eyes sharp, their ears tuned to any sound of unrest. But their presence is thin compared to the vastness of the city. Much of Rome at night belongs not to order, but to chance. In the insulae, families settle into sleep. Through open windows, you hear the murmur of lullabies, the creak of beds, the sighs of exhaustion after long labor. From taverns, however, spills laughter and song. The poor gather here to drink cheap wine, to gamble with dice, to share stories exaggerated into legend. Their joy is raw, unpolished, but genuine. In back rooms, arguments flare and sometimes knives flash. For many, the tavern is an escape. For others, a trap. Wander further, and you may stumble upon darker corners. Alleys where thieves lurk, waiting for a careless passerby. Pickpockets slip through the crowds with practiced ease, their hands quicker than the eye. Rome's size and wealth draw all kinds of men, not all of them honest. The night belongs to them as much as to emperors. And yet, the city is not only danger. Look upward, and the night sky spreads, dotted with stars. The same constellations that guided sailors across the sea now shine over the rooftops. For Romans, these stars are not mere lights, but symbols, omens, the eyes of gods watching from above. Astrologers read their patterns, predicting fates both grand and small. Some citizens peer upward in awe, others in fear, wondering what tomorrow will bring. At the riverbank, the Tiber flows dark and steady, its surface shimmering under the moon. Barges creak in the current, tied fast, their cargo resting until dawn. The air here is cooler, heavy with the scent of water and reeds. Lovers come to whisper by its edge, soldiers to brood over distant homes, beggars to huddle in silence. The river hears all, remembers all, yet speaks only in its endless murmur. In wealthy villas, the night continues with wine and music. Guests recline under painted ceilings, still feasting, still talking, their laughter echoing into the gardens. Musicians pluck at strings, dancers whirl, poets recite until their voices falter. For the elite, the night is long, filled with pleasures bought by wealth. Outside their walls, however, the city grows quieter, save for the barking of dogs and the distant cries of vendors selling roasted nuts to late wanderers. There is one more sound to notice, the soft rustle of prayers. Even in darkness, Romans turn to their household gods. Lamps glow before the Lararia, little shrines where families ask for protection through the night. A child whispers for pleasant dreams, a mother for her husband's safe return, a father for fortune in tomorrow's work. These quiet words float into the air, joining countless others, like a hidden chorus beneath the city's louder songs. Pause now and ask yourself, if you walk through Rome's night, where would you linger? In the tavern's rough warmth, laughing among strangers? By the Tiber's calm waters, gazing at the stars? Or would you retreat behind the walls of a domus, surrounded by light and safety, while the city outside stirred with unknown stories? Rome at night is both fragile and eternal. By dawn, the lamps will be extinguished, the streets swept clean, and the city will awaken again to its daily rhythm. But for these hours of darkness, it belongs to mystery. And as we near the end of our journey, one final step remains: to look beyond the single day, to reflect on what Rome has left us, and why its shadow still lingers across centuries. The city is quiet now, and so let us sit for a while with the afterglow of everything we have seen, and think about what remains when the lamps are put out and the last voice on the street has faded. A single day in Rome has passed before us like a procession, and yet the echoes of that day run forward through time, crossing empires and languages and the lives of people who never set foot on those stones. If you listen, you can still hear them in your own world, because Rome, even when it sleeps, does not stop speaking. Think of the road beneath your feet, the feel of fitted stone that does not yield under the press of years. The Romans did not just lay roads, they stitched together distances, turning far into near and wild into known. A straight line across a hard landscape is an idea made visible, a promise that movement can be orderly, that a journey can be trusted. In the rhythm of that promise, you can hear merchants singing over their pack animals, messengers counting their breaths as milestones pass, soldiers marching with the same footfall they learned as boys in dusty camps on the edge of the world. Long after the legions disbanded, the habit of connecting places endured, and with it the thought that power is not only the sword in a man's hand but the path beneath his steps. Then there is the law, that patient loom on which the city wove order from contention. We watched men argue in basilicas. We heard the clap of tongues on marble and the rasp of styluses over wax. Out of those motions came a belief that rules can be reasoned into being, and that a dispute can end with judgment instead of blood. The names of jurists have faded for most of us, but their habits did not. They taught that a contract is a kind of vow, that ownership and duty are twins, that citizenship is a shape the mind wears before it ever fits the body. If you have ever appealed to fairness, if you have ever signed your name and felt secure, you have put your hand to that same loom. Language is another thread that runs forward, unbroken by time. In the markets we heard a chorus of tongues, but in the curia and in the schools the same cadence rose again and again, the clipped music of sentences built to carry weight. It taught a world to name the parts of thought, to set premise beside conclusion the way a mason sets stone upon stone. When poets bent that language into song, they gave memory a home. The lines of the wanderer who sought a new city across cruel seas, the playful transformations of the world's first loves and losses, the grave counsel of a philosopher writing to a friend about anger, fate, and the hour that is always slipping away. Virgil and Ovid and Seneca did not vanish with their bodies. Their voices passed into other voices, and today they still sit on the far edge of your bookshelf, a little stern and a little amused, waiting to be consulted when your own road forks. There is also the deep lesson of water and stone. Aqueducts stride like colossi across valleys because someone believed that need could be answered with form. Baths open daily because someone believed that comfort could be civic and that the body has claims no senate should ignore. Temples and theaters and circuses rose because someone believed that public space is a mirror held up to a people's idea of itself. You can find that belief in many cities now, in the way light falls into a library, in the way a park bends to the shape of a river, in the way a bridge refuses to be only practical and reaches for grace. Rome was not shy about beauty. It designed usefulness until it became beautiful and then pretended it had never intended anything else. It is fair, of course, to say that the shadow of Rome is not all warm. The sand of the arena is cold when the crowd leaves and the night wind crosses it. There are names that have not been sung, and stories that were never written down because the hands that could have written them were busy carrying water or breaking stone, or mending a child's only shoe. Empire makes roads, but it can also make graves, and any fair memory must be large enough to hold both. Yet that honesty does not erase the tenderness we felt in small rooms where household lamps flickered and one family's breath rose and fell in a rhythm that would be recognized anywhere on earth. Sometimes the past reaches us not as a paragraph in a book, but as a sudden presence in a darkened theater. A director lifts a curtain and gives us a general who longs for a farm far from politics. And we feel that tug in our own ribs, because the choice between public duty and private peace is not confined to marble capitals. Sometimes the past walks onto the page in a clear modern voice and explains how a city of brick taught itself to behave like a city of marble. And a scholar kindly places a hand on our shoulder and says there is more here than ruins if you are willing to look. Film and literature have not replaced ruins. They have taught us how to listen to them. If a scene in a movie made the Colosseum breathe for you, if a chapter in a contemporary history made the Forum hum again, then you know this already in your bones. What lingers most, at least for me as your companion on this slow walk, is the pattern of a single day. Dawn over tiles and smoke, a baker's first loaf torn in steam, the Forum beating like a drum, then the baths turning heat into conversation, an argument polished until it shines, sand and steel and a crowd roaring itself into unity and then back into 1,000 private lives. A table set, an oil lamp lit, a sentence finished and tucked away for morning. A river repeating what it has always said, that time moves but does not forget. Perhaps that is the nearest thing to Rome's secret. It taught itself to make rituals out of necessities until even fatigue felt dignified. It taught itself to make memory out of stone until even absence looked permanent. So if you were to carry something from this journey into your own night, what would you choose? Would you choose the steadiness of a road, the discipline of a line that does not waver even when the hills seem to argue with it? Would you choose the habit of speech, the readiness to turn feeling into reasons and reasons back into mercy? Would you choose the quiet in a frigid pool after the heat, the lesson that renewal is not an accident but a practice? Or would you choose something humbler, like the way a craftsman's thumb leaves a print in clay and does not apologize for it? Because a mark of the hand is not a flaw but a proof that someone cared. Before we part, let me ask you a gentler question too. If you could live one more hour inside that Roman day, which hour would you claim? The blue hush before the market wakes, the soft thunder of water in a public hall, the moment a speech begins and you feel the square lean forward as one body, the instant when the first star enters the river and crosses it without making a ripple. Tell me which one and why, because your answer will teach me what kind of Rome you carry inside you. Our walk ends where all good walks end, not with a gate slammed behind us, but with a promise that paths remain. The city we left is still there, held together by lime and memory, and if you return tomorrow, it will pour itself out for you again with the patience of old stone. Thank you for walking slowly, for listening when the city asked to be quiet, for letting its noise be music. If parts of this story breathed for you, or nudged your own memories awake, tell me in the comments which room, which smell, which voice has stayed in your pocket. It helps this little channel grow, and it helps me choose which door to open next time. And one last word in kindness and in honesty. This narration is set to be voiced by artificial intelligence. And while that allows us to travel far and long together, it also means there may be slips and stumbles I did not intend. If you hear them, if you spot a historical knot I tied too tight or left too loose, please point it out with a gentle hand. I will be grateful and I will fix it, because this shared road is better when we keep it in repair together. For now, rest. The lamps of Rome are dimming. Outside your window, a quieter night has already begun, and the Tiber has found its old line again. Close your eyes and carry the city with you the way a traveler carries a coin rubbed smooth by years of touch, not for its price but for the memory it holds. When morning comes, we can choose another road and another story, and Rome, faithful as ever, will be waiting where we left it.